Hey, I'm Daniel and welcome to my top 10 all-time favorite board games 2025 edition. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of all top 10 lists, especially if there is something like the hottest game or the trendiest game or anything that promotes fear of missing out. But this video has nothing to do with that, it's simply the games that I enjoy playing the most throughout the year, and frankly that is the only criteria for this list. I will include some older games though, this is why it's my all-time favorite. It's not just games released this year, but it's a game that I enjoyed playing throughout this year. I hope it makes sense. Also, frankly, I don't have a lot of board games in my collection. I'm a pretty conservative board gamer, at least relatively to some other content creators probably, even though, to be fair, this particular year I did back quite a few games. But nevertheless, I've been thinking if we will make this video as a kinda December tradition, then I thought it would be kinda interesting to see how this list will compare year to year, if we'll see any new games breaking into my top 10 at all. So yeah, this is just a kinda little experiment if you will. And now, well, without further ado, let's get straight into the list. So at number 10 we have Heroes of Terrinoth from Fantasy Flight Games, released in 2018. Now, on a quick side note, I purchased this game quite a while ago, in fact years even before I moved here to the UK. This is why I still have a localized copy of the game, and the same is true for a couple of other games on this list. We just don't pay too much attention to that. I will still talk you through about it. So anyway, I would say the best way I can describe Heroes of Terrinoth is that it is an adventure card game. In this game, you select one of the 12 available heroes, you select a scenario, all of which are just the one-shot modes, and throughout the game you need to have progress on your journey cards, so you could then go to the next location and ultimately until you reveal the final boss that you will encounter. Some enemies, they are spawned in the shadow in the kind of further area, but some enemies, they go engage the heroes, and I would say just these two systems alone, the way you place the enemies, the way you explore location cards, all of those mechanics, they're a little bit similar to another upcoming game which I'm very excited about. It's called Radiance, and frankly the first time I've seen Radiance I initially thought about Heroes of Terrinoth, and I do quite enjoy those things. Now, probably the best part in Heroes of Terrinoth is the level end system, because every once in a while you can upgrade a card of your hero and you can choose between two different subclasses or two different archetypes if you will, and if you upgrade one card of a certain subclass, then all the remaining cards has also be from the same subclass. And so because there are just so many different heroes and each with two different subclasses, there's quite a lot of replayability in this quite relatively small game, and because all of the scenarios, they are completely independent, you can play any of them in any order, just completely one-shot styles, not a campaign, which is generally quite a good thing to me. And even though this game is not perfect by any means, there are some things that I don't quite like, namely some randomness with the dice, but in any case that's still a game that I enjoy playing every once in a while, and this is why it is in my top 10 all-time favorite games. Moving on next to the number 9 we have Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon from Awakening Realms, released in 2019. Now, I must admit that I have a little bit of complicated relationship with this game. It was a very rare example that the game remained completely unplayed on the shelf for probably more than a year. As I think about it, probably was 2 years really, because initially what drew me the most attention to the game is the way how you build the map and you can explore all these locations. I think this is just absolutely brilliant, but it is a very narrative driven, very story driven game, which generally I'm not a too huge fan of that. And I believe when initially I purchased this game, we were in the middle of our Gloomhaven campaign, which is a very mechanical driven game, very tactical, very combat focused game. And so I remember trying to play Tainted Grail for the first time. The exploration was absolutely amazing, but the battles and other areas was a little bit not as strong for me, so I remember we just kept it back in the box and the game remained on the shelf completely unplayed for another year or so. Eventually we did give it a good go. My wife and I will play the full campaign of Tainted Grail, and I'm not gonna spoil obviously, but there was a certain moment somewhat throughout the middle of the campaign where things have changed quite a bit, not only thematically, story-wise, but also a little bit mechanically, and I just vividly remember our excitement about like, wow, so this is what happens now, and that was absolutely amazing moment. And frankly that was enough for me to kind of fall in love into this game, even though I said I'm not generally a huge fan of story-driven games, so I probably don't see myself replaying this game too often, but I still love it and appreciate it, and I'm even considering buying a new game from that universe, Tainted Grail Kings of Ruins. This is now something on my radar because of this original game. Moving on to the number 8 we have Dragons of Etchinstone from Cheap Theory Games, released in 2025. And this is by far the smallest game box on this list, but even though this game seems small, it is very big in depth. So Dragons of Etchinstone is a card game, and you play with your mage cards, going through a series of regions from 1 to 4, fighting the enemies and making journeys on your way to the final big dragon, who is the final boss of the game. And being completely honest, I was a little bit skeptical first about the game, especially since I have another game from this designer, Joe Clipful, which is Gloomhaven Bugs and Buttons, which I didn't quite enjoy, but I still said, you know what, let me just give it a go and let's see how it goes. And oh my, I'm so glad I gave it a chance, because this game absolutely exceeded my expectations. And specifically I'm talking about Dragons of Etchinstone with the North Wales expansion, because with extra regions, extra dragons, extra mages to play, this adds so much to the replayability as well as the depth, because all the new components from this expansion, they're even more crunchier, and I just absolutely love that. So it's a very compact, very affordable, very crunchy solo game, and yeah, it's just a big win for me overall. Moving on to the number 7, we have One Hit Heroes from Wiggles 3D, released in 2025. Now, One Hit Heroes is a cooperative deck builder boss battler game, at least that's the way I can describe it probably. It has some probably similarities or maybe inspiration taken from Slay the Spire, in a way you play your cards, in a way you have your energy, then you discard it and draw in your cards and build in your deck between encounters, and frankly that mechanic alone was already enough for me to draw attention to this game, but everything else is done very uniquely to this game that I have not seen before, and namely its main mechanic, the aggro management. Because every time you deal damage to the boss, you gain in more aggro, which means there is a much more likely that you will get hit by the boss. But remember, the title of the game is called One Hit Heroes, which means you are literally just one hit from KO. And of course it's not quite like that, there are still some ways of mitigating that. You can burn your items to prevent damage, sometimes you can just avoid getting hit entirely if you have a certain cards, but I would say that tension is still always there, that you know that you are literally still one hit away from KO, from losing the game. So the stakes are very high, and it's just fun. And even though I must say I'm not a huge fan of the theme, which is kind of like mecha, robotics and things of that sort, I'm usually much more into fantasy games, but I still do enjoy the game, especially the cooperative elements. There are many ways you can support other heroes, you can help them to manage aggro or mitigate damage or make some combos. I think all of that is done beautifully, and by the way, I'm planning to make quite a lot of playthroughs and maybe potentially other videos on this game on this channel, so if that sounds interesting to you, definitely keep an eye on that. And yeah, that was One Hit Heroes on number 7. Moving on next to the number 6, we have Slay the Spire from Contention Games, released in 2024. Now, in case you don't know, Slay the Spire is a board game that is based off a video game, but that video game was initially inspired by the board game, so I guess this title made a full circle in a way. And so this game is a roguelike deck builder. You're climbing up that spire, traversing through the map, fighting your way through the enemies, through elites, through events, occasionally visiting a merchant or a campfire to upgrades. And oh my, I must say that I've been playing Slay the Spire for hundreds, literally hundreds upon hundreds of hours, both in the video version and of course in the board game as well. And I think it is just absolutely brilliant game. And even though there are just 4 heroes, which is not much by the modern standards, because there are just so many randomness in the game with the way you build your deck, and every time you're trying to make the most out of your limited options, whatever the game is presenting to you at this very moment, with all the relics, all the cards, all the boss relics, and all the encounters. It's just such a fun experience every time you play the game. Now, I must say that my personal enjoyment of the game did drop a little bit compared to the previous year, but it's simply because I've been just completely obsessed with this game for more than 2 years probably, if you count the video game as well, and I just played a ton of it. But that being said, I still just absolutely love the game, and I'm pretty sure it will stay in my top 10, probably for at least a few more years for sure. Moving on to the number 5, we have Runebound 3rd edition from Fantasy Flight Games, released in 2015. I do want to mention that I love this game specifically with the cooperative expansion, which completely transforms the game into a much better game in my opinion, and probably the best way I can describe the game, it is a fantasy adventure game. You select your character from a quite large number of available heroes, you choose a location on this beautiful map where you want to spawn, then you choose your scenario, which is again, this game is completely played in one-shot modes, which means it's not a campaign, which is usually a good thing for me, and then you just exploring the map, doing side quests, battling the enemies with quite unique kind of battle chips mechanics, with these tokens that you need to flip and see what side you get, and of course you have a very limited time before you need to face the final challenge, whether it's a dragon or a spider queen or undeads or even a plague that is spreading across this land. And I think this is not a perfect game by any means, but to me Runebound is just a cozy adventure game that is pretty light. There is not much role going on, you're just doing your side quests, exploring this land, visiting the towns, getting some items, getting stronger. And again, because this game is quite light, both in the theme and in the rules, it's a pretty good introductory type of games, and it's pretty close to my heart as one of the first games that made me fall in love into modern board gaming as a whole. So to be honest, it is a game that I would probably not recommend recommend today. I think it is a little bit dated by now, even though I probably wouldn't be able to purchase it anyway, because it's out of print for many years, but I just have so many good memories of playing the game. I still have it in my collection and I still love it, and yeah, that is Runebound 3rd edition on my number 5. Moving on to the number 4, we have Gloomhaven 2nd edition, released this year in 2025, and this 2nd edition completely replaced the original 1st edition game for me, and I think it is an upgrade in pretty much every way. Now, Gloomhaven was probably the first game from this tactical combat genre that I absolutely fallen in love since then, and I remember back in 2020 or so, when I initially got the 1st edition of the game, I was just completely blown away by all the mechanics and the clever of the system as a whole, that every turn you select 2 cards, but then you can choose which side of the cards you want to play, either the top or the bottom part of each card respectively, and your cards are also effectively your stamina, because every cycle you reduce the number of your available cards, which again effectively is your stamina, and there are also some very powerful abilities that go straight to the burn pile instead of your discard pile. So again, this is a trade-off. Do you want to make a powerful turn but to reduce your stamina, the number of rounds available for you in the scenario? And I just absolutely love this tension and this system, and then also the way you level up your characters. This always a very exciting moment when you choose to add a new card to your card pool, or when you improve in your modifier deck, which increases the likelihood of dealing more damage or doing some other cool things. And I just love pretty much everything mechanically about the game. There is obviously some story, but to be honest, I'm pretty blind to that anyway. Pretty often whenever we play a Gloomhaven game, we're not even reading the intro and the final bits of the scenario. I'm much more usually into mechanics of the game, which I think what's definitely the main strength of this game. And the 2nd edition specifically, yeah, as I said, I think it improves the game in pretty much every way. The scenarios, the characters, their reputations, the items, all of that are more balanced, more polished, and yeah, definitely one of my favorite games. Now, moving on to the number 3, we have Frosthaven, also from Cephalofair, released in 2022. Now, Frosthaven is pretty much the same as Gloomhaven in many ways, but that new addition of the outpost phase, where you build up your settlement and upgrading the buildings and doing some cool things, I think this just adds so much, both mechanically as well as thematically. And I think each scenario in Frosthaven also a little bit more complex. It has a little bit more depth in the campaign as well as in the characters, which is generally another good thing for me. And even though, as you can see, this game has dropped 2 points for me in the enjoyment, which means it was my number 1 all-time favorite game just up until recently, but nevertheless I still absolutely love the game. And between all the Gloomhaven and Frosthaven games, and I mean the original Gloomhaven 1st edition, the Frosthaven, the Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, and Gloomhaven the 2nd edition, as well as a Gloomhaven Digital, I think I played over 500 hours, probably even more to be honest. And yeah, I've been absolutely obsessed with this Haven universe, and out of all these games so far, Frosthaven is definitely my favorite one. And now moving on to the number 2, we have Grimcoven from Awakened Realms, released in 2025. This is a brand new game, and it is one of the 2 games that pushed down Frosthaven from its number 1 spot, and probably the best way I can describe Grimcoven is that it's a tactical cooperative boss battler. And even though I've got Grimcoven just recently and we haven't even painted the miniatures, I must say I'm so impressed with this game. Probably the thing that I love the most about it is the modularity between different bosses, the characters, scenarios, elites, minions, landmarks, terrains, and everything. The replayability of the game is just completely off the charts, and there are so many different tactical combinations how you want to approach different bosses, or what characters you want to use against specific bosses, or what even starting item specific equipment you want to use against certain bosses. It's a very tactical game, it's a quite challenging game, and there are so many interesting decisions. And yeah, did I mention that it's not a campaign game, which means it's a highly tactical game that you can play in just a one-shot mode, which is honestly exactly what I've been missing in my collection, especially compared to Frosthaven and Gloomhaven games, which obviously are campaign games, and frankly that is probably one of the main reasons why my enjoyment of those games has dropped down a little bit. But yeah, Grimcoven has been just an absolutely massive success in our plays, and even though there are a little bit of rough edges in certain things, for example in certain roles, some aspects of it are just not ideal, but gameplay wise I think this game is just absolutely amazing. And by the way, I do plan to make a lot of content about Grimcoven, specifically all character guides and all abilities breakdown and analysis and all of that I usually do. So if you want to see more Grimcoven content, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you're not gonna miss it. And finally, moving on to the number 1, my absolute favorite game of all time, and if you've been watching my channel you probably know already what it's gonna be. Of course, it is the Elder Scrolls Betrayal over the Second Era from Cheap Theory Games, released in 2025. And oh my, this game just clicks with me on so many levels. The character creation, the character mat, the way it's designed, the cooldown, the skills, the attribute tokens, the way all the races and classes and skills and items and all of that work in a holistic system is just absolutely brilliant. I truly think this game is a masterpiece, and I think it has the best character customization in a board game, full stop. It's just so good. It also was my first game from Chip Theory Games, so all the chips and all the production quality that they deliver is just, oh my goodness, how good is that? And probably if I would try to describe the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era in a single word, I think that word would be elegant. It's just so elegant the way all the components work, and the way the character mat works, and the cooldown track, and the skill lines. I mean, it just blows my mind really on the game design level. I've been playing this game for almost a year now, pretty much non-stop. I've played every single quest, I replayed many endgame scenarios many times already at this point, but I still want more. I'm still so looking forward to the new expansions, to throw in even more classes and skill lines and all of this goodness into the mix of character customization, of new campaigns. And thanks to its modular system, I think it's so easy to do that. It's not one of those expansions where, you know, if you finish the full campaign, only then you can enjoy kind of the newest part. But no, in this game, because again it's so modular, you can enjoy the new regions with the existing classes, or you can combine classes with new skill lines. It's just so flexible, it's so good. And honestly, it's probably safe to say that this game's probably even inspired me to create my YouTube channel in the first place. I mean, I've been thinking of creating that channel for quite a long time actually, but I think it was the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era that gave me the final push, and when I've seen this game I was like, yes, there are just so many nerdy things that I would love to talk about. And as a matter of fact, that is exactly what I do on my channel, because I already have probably more than 30 videos about this game, all the class guides and beginner's guides and breakdowns, and many more videos to come. Yeah, this game is truly remarkable. And well, that was my top 10 board games of all time 2025 edition, and as already mentioned, I do plan to make more videos about many games on this list, so definitely keep an eye on that, and let me know in the comments how your top 3, maybe even top 10 games would look like. I'd be curious to read, to see how our tastes align. Maybe I will discover some new games thanks to your comments, but in any case, as always, I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.